Hey guys, Jessica with Southern Sparrow. Today we're going back to the basics. So we've done a lot of videos around how to deal, how to do the Charleston, how to choose your hand, and little house rules and strategy tips. But what we haven't done is shown you how to actually do standard gameplay. So once the deal is done, you do the Charleston. Once the Charleston is done, you have one last opportunity for a courtesy pass with the person across from you. You can then pass between 0 and 3 tiles. That's something you agree with the person who's sitting across from you. And then what? So let's talk about that. So we've set up our game. We have our walls in front of all of our racks here. Each player has been dealt their tiles. So I was the dealer here. I have 14 tiles. All of the other players here at my table have 13 tiles. We've done our Charleston, that process of passing the tiles around the table to get rid of the things that we didn't want and hopefully get some tiles that we did want. And then we've done our courtesy pass. Now what do? We're going to then push out the wall. I've already done that, but you'll push out the next wall. Remember, everything in Mahjong, the deal and gameplay, passes to the right, and then the walls push out to the left. Some people call that the curtsy, when the wall gets pushed out. So we'll push out the wall. I like to add a little tail to my wall just by twisting the last stack. It's just a nice little indicator to everyone at the table which end we're drawing from, this end, and which end is the last tiles for that wall before we move to the next wall getting pushed out. So let's pretend we've done the deal, the Charleston, the courtesy pass. We're ready for gameplay. We've pushed out that wall. I, as the dealer, start the gameplay with a discard because remember, I have that one extra tile, so I don't need to draw. So I will start the game by discarding. In this case, I'm going to say 1 dot. So when you're playing Mahjong, you will discard and you will name the tile. So I'm saying the name of the tile as I put it down face up. I'm saying 1 dot. And the reason that we do that is more of just a courtesy to the other players, right? There's a lot going on. And often when it's not your turn, you'll kind of be focused in on your tiles here on your rack and making sure that you're lining up with the hand that you've chosen or potentially selecting a hand you can pivot to, and you don't want to miss a discard that you might need to call. So you'll throw it and say the name, which then indicates to everyone at the table that this is the live tile. So what do live tiles, dead tiles mean? The live tile is simply the most recently discarded tile that then is available for people to call. So if I've discarded this 1 dot and the player to my left needs that to make her hand, she'll say pause to think about it. And then if she wants to take that tile, she'll say call or take or yeah, I want it or something to indicate I'm going to take that tile, at which point she would place the tile in the top of her rack and she would then need to come up with the other tiles to make that meld. So let's say that her hand required 3 of the 1 dot tile. She would need to show that she has all 3 of those tiles to make that exposure. And then that exposure would live up on top of her rack there for the rest of the game. And when she Mahjong is winning. When she wins, that meld that she exposed must be part of the hand as she wins it. Meaning if she goes up for an exposure with 3 of the 1 dot tile, then she must win with 3 of the 1 dot tile. She can't take one back or add an additional one to change hands. The hand that she plays and wins with must have that exposure of 3 1 dots. Okay, so I've discarded. The next player will begin her turn by drawing, and the draw is always from the next tile in order in the wall. The wall is simply a communal draw pile, right? It's set up in a pretty way in front of all of our racks, but all it is it's your Go Fish pile. So you're going to draw that tile. I'm by myself today. So draw the tile and rack it. The minute that this drawn tile clicks into her slope side of her rack, that discarded tile from when I discarded is dead. So she's drawn this tile and racked it. That kills this tile here. And now she can go about her turn. And then to end her turn, she'll discard the tile and say its name, in this case, 2 bam. So she would say 2 bam, and that indicates to everyone at the table, the 2 bam is the live tile. That is the tile that anyone can call. And then the next player would draw and rack her tile, again, killing the previously discarded tile. So you start your turn with a draw from the wall, and you end your turn with a discard. So let's say she's going to discard the tile she just drew, 7, bam. The next player would draw and rack, and that kills the 7, bam. And she would then end her turn by discarding. Let's say she discards a 9, bam. So she's going to then say 9, bam, and now the turn is mine again. So I'm going to draw and rack, and then I will think and do my turn. So let's talk through a couple of other things. Let's say that I have exposed, someone discarded a 2, bam. I've then called it and gone up for exposure, but I didn't have the other tiles needed to make that exposure. Let's say the hand I'm going for requires 3 2 bams. I am going to expose with my jokers because I wanted that discard. And then let's say that the player to my right has a 2 bam. So I've gone up with my 2 bam. I'm going to then discard, let's say I discard 5 bam. She is then going to start her turn with a draw. And then she will very courteously hand me the 2 bam tile. She's not going to reach onto my rack and grab my joker. She's going to hand me the 2 bam tile, and she'll say, I'll take your joker, please. Or may I have your joker, please? Or can we please swap? And I would then take her 2 bam tile, and I would hand her my joker that I had exposed, and that could go back into her rack. So what happens if, let's say that it was the player across from me who had discarded the 2 bam that I wanted. And so if she's discarding that 2 bam, right? She discards the 2 bam. It would normally be this player's turn, but I've said pause. Pause, I want it. I take it, I put it up on top of my rack. I come up with the rest of my exposure there for that part of my hand. And now we've effectively skipped this person's turn. So by calling and taking that tile, that acts as my draw for the beginning of my turn. So the gameplay skips the player here, comes to me, my discard then passes the turn to the person to my right. So keep that in mind as players are calling tiles around you. That then moves the turn to the person who is exposing, and then the gameplay continues to pass around the table to the right. So if someone calls a tile, that's their turn. They end their turn with that discard by naming the tile, in this case, 6 dot, and then the play passes to that person's right. So that's how gameplay works. As we would, completely draw through this wall, then this next wall would come out and we would continue the draw. If we make it all the way around to this last tile, let's say that everything else has come out, we draw this last tile, nobody has mahjed, nobody has won. That's called a wall game. And all it means is nobody won, the wall wins, and it's time for us to throw and shuffle all of our tiles again and play again. Otherwise, when someone does mahj, they will say Mahjong or Maj, and they'll go up on their rack and show all of the tiles that make their hand. I obviously just have random tiles here, but they would need to show it, and they would point to their National Mahjong League card and say, oh, I've played the second line down in the 2024 section, or something like that. They'll identify the line that they played, and then they'll walk you through their Mahjong, and then they win, and you can play the next game. I hope that was helpful. Please give me any questions that you have in the comments, and I will answer them there, or we'll make another